Victor's used to being the one who swan dives into other people's DMs with wild abandon, but this time he's on the receiving end of impossible to ignore texts.
She just invited me to her house with a whole bunch of emojis.
Either she's gonna be making you eggplant parmesan, or you're getting lucky this Friday.
Episode 6 of Love, Victor bears the delightfully soapy title, Creekwood Nights. Accordingly, every one of our antsy teens has got some sordid affair on their mind, whether it's sex, lies, or civilizations. When you're a hormonal teenager, it can be hard to think with clarity, and that slipshod haziness extends to the writing team on this episode. Each of the subplots is peppered with questionable insights around love and sexuality that feel like the storytelling equivalent of a cold shower. Overall, though, it's an entertaining episode filled with tons of fodder for the hungry shippers of each of the show's key pairings. But let's kick things off with the one couple that every single one of you is rooting for, Benji and Derek. To celebrate their first anniversary, Benji prepares a romantic candlelight dinner for him and Derek, complete with all the Italian restaurant trappings to harken back to their first date. Derek responds to the sweet and thoughtful gesture the only way Derek could.
Whoa.
Ice cold indifference.
Anniversary? What, are we straight people now?
Okay, get your mitts on because here comes this piping hot take fresh out of the oven. I don't hate Derek. Every romantic comedy needs an obstacle, and actor Lucas Gage has courageously taken on the mantle of playing the guy destined to draw the ire of an entire fandom simply by being partnered with our hero's would-be prince. You can gauge the craftsmanship and tone of a romantic comedy based on how its ignominious obstacle character is written. Whether they're stable but boring, absurdly perfect in every conceivable way, or all-out mean. Derek fits into this franchise's pattern of striving to present every character as a flesh and blood human with discernible wants and needs, even the antagonists. As such, Derek doesn't come off as an irredeemable villain by any stretch. As a queer artist who appears to be fresh out of high school, he seems to place a high premium on calling bullshit everywhere he sees it, pronouncing and protecting his queer identity, and trying to do all he can to be taken seriously as a creative, especially amongst his peer group of avant-garde musicians.
The opener are these two blind sisters who do bluegrass covers of TLC songs. I mean, it's supposed to be awesome.
In that sophomoric wise fool sort of way, he probably looks down on anyone younger than him who hasn't quote-unquote matured as much as he has.
I'm sorry, I'm a dick.
I think he's simply the wrong guy for Benji, a self-professed romantic who's still in high school. I could see Derek thriving with someone who has more varied life experience than Derek himself does. Someone who can push him to enhance his knowledge with wisdom, while supporting his desire to broaden his artistic horizons and reject heteronormative culture. Speaking of which,
one of the best things about being gay is that we don't have to conform to that heteronormative rom-com bullshit that is dreamt up by corporations to help sell greeting cards to morons.
It's unfortunate that a character extolling the queer community's freedom to opt out of traditional social mores is presented not as a thrilling mic drop, but as a thorn in a beloved character's happiness balloon. It's even more unfortunate that the show places Derek's queer positive viewpoint in direct opposition to romantic dinners, anniversaries, and corny drugstore greeting cards. It's almost as if they're asking viewers to engage in a false dichotomy, pitting schmaltz, which I personally love, against forging your own queer-friendly traditions, which I also personally love. One can only hope that the show offers up more appealing spokespeople for breaking away from heteronormativity in the near future. While Benji is left to contemplate whether or not to kiss Derek goodbye, Lake and Felix kiss each other hello.
How'd you get so good at this?
YouTube?
In the long-standing practice of introducing a secondary romantic storyline between comically oriented characters to keep things fun and frothy amidst all the angst. Getting these two together is one of many safe and expected storytelling choices that crop up toward the back half of the season. But when it comes to comfort food TV, often the joy isn't found in what happens, but how it happens. In this case, how Felix happens is also a bit of a letdown. Lake expresses grave concern over how her looks are perceived, allowing Felix to swoop in to tell her how he appreciates her true beauty. This setup isn't just a throwback, it's straight up retrograde, so much so that it was parodied all the way back in 2015. Felix then declares that she needs to find her anglerfish.
That fish only cares about one thing in the entire world. Her.
You can sense how this episode's writer, David Smithyman, strove to design a romantic speech centered around some Felix-esque, obscure science did-you-know type factoid that makes you swoon with the notion that love is everywhere, even in the deepest recesses of the ocean. But his monologue also promotes some lopsided ideas about romantic devotion.
Then he dies and becomes a part of her body, and she swims away, never thinking about him again, but he doesn't mind.
Felix is essentially saying that being used up and discarded by an uncaring partner is worth it for the mere chance to serve that partner. Even more disturbingly, Lake appears to be so self-centered that the speech actually moves her. I'll grant that these actions and reactions are keeping in line with what we know about the characters. Eager devotion runs along the lines of everything Felix does. Meanwhile, Lake has been firmly established as someone fixated on optics as a defense mechanism to cushion her insecurities. But Lake's hangups about her looks, quelled by Felix defining true love as masochistic self-sacrifice, presents these characters at their most two-dimensional. While Anthony Turple and BB Woods spend the entire episode selling the hell out of some truly awkward dialogue.
Looks like somebody's gonna be dancing the Midnight Macarena.
Thank you, bees.
The script in turn sells their characters short. Unreciprocated indeed. And while we're on the subject of reciprocation, Victor must decide once and for all if his heart's really in his relationship with Mia. Polite makeout sessions might be enough to quench Victor's thirst, but Mia's ready for both of them to get full-on doused.
I miss your muscular legs.
Sounds like fun, and not filled with the crippling pressure to perform.
Here's one of those classic TV problems that could be solved if the characters just had an honest conversation with each other. But Victor, as we've seen many times before, prefers to deflect instead of confront. It's no wonder that instead of telling her he's not ready, he sends in Felix Weston, who thankfully acknowledges the undue pressure that Mia's putting on Victor.
If you're not ready, you're not ready. Your body, your choice.
And marches in with the episode's true highlight. Nothing could be less sensual than a night of strategy board gaming.
My 10th victory point, and crown me King of Catan.
And of course, these four actors milk this comic gag for all it's worth.
Who's ready to start playing?
Wait, we haven't started? What have we been doing for the last 45 minutes?
Guilty at Mia's miffed reaction to their botched date night, not to mention this interrogation from Lake.
Do you not like her? Is there someone else? Are you gay?
Victor gives it the old college try, revving himself up as much as possible, but he ultimately sputters out. I find it troublesome that just because Victor doesn't feel like it's the right time to have sex with Mia,
and you've been trying to figure out if you're attracted to her, it sounds like tonight you realize that you're not.
Victor and Simon and the writers seem to agree that now's a good time as any to give up on the relationship and start looking for other fish in the sea.
Maybe it's time for you to really figure out what you want.
It seemed that the season's early episodes were teeing up a story about a hero who felt two different flavors of attraction for two different people. Hell, in this very episode, Benji makes this spot-on observation.
Turns out human sexuality is less of a straight line and more of a Cirque du Soleil show. Long, confusing, and full of sexy clowns.
But by episode's end, the writers appear to embrace the absolutist viewpoint that Victor's romantic relationship with Mia is a sham just because he's not a flat-out horn dog for her.
I really do like Mia, but what if that isn't enough?
Suddenly, in a single Creekwood night, we've gone from treading new ground in a mainstream YA narrative, that is, exploring how a teenager might handle his burgeoning bisexuality, or biromanticism, or pansexuality, to a more conventional storyline that boils down to closeted guy leads poor girlfriend on. It goes without saying that, as depicted, Victor's experience with Mia is one that many cis gay men can relate to. But I'm a bit disappointed that, with this episode and the ones that follow, this show seems to have turned its back on the promise of exploring a richer, more complex, and more daring tale of sexual fluidity. Regardless of how we got here, the episode makes it clear that Victor's got eyes for Benji, and Benji alone. The good news is that sometime between the contrived Call Me Maybe dancing of episode 3 and this episode, Michael Cimino and George Sear have done commendable work in figuring out how to generate a believable chemistry between these two lovelorn baristas. Their scene in which they trade advice on how to approach their respective date nights was all kinds of cute rom-com irony. And George Sear finally starts to give us a teeny tiny glimpse into Benji's psyche, in terms of how he might approach his personal relationships, and why he might find Victor to be a reliable confidant. Even this line starts to lend Benji some much-needed quirk,
I love meatballs. So ugly. So delicious.
perhaps painting him as an Epicurean type enlivened by his senses to an amusing degree. And after both date nights land with a thud, director Anu Valia closes the episode with this latte art lesson that underscores how far these guys have come since their first tutorial, as both of them are now left wondering what the heck comes next in their romantic lives, but grateful for each other's support. The most potent kind of romantic imagery comes from the delicate staging of two people engaged in a single task, their shared connection unspoken but ever present. Though it was a little bit of a rocky night, this nightcap hits the spot. Oh right, then there's this not so surprising surprise, but we'll cover that in the next chapter. So pack your duffel bag because it's time to hit the road in episode 7, What Happens in Willacoochee, in which nothing happens. Nope. Everyone just goes about living their lives in peace and harmony. It's all very uneventful. And let us know in the comments, what is Lake's most egregious affront to the arts and culture world?
This is the most bored I have ever been. And I'm including that time you tricked me into listening to a podcast.
Her aversion toward all podcasts?
I just saw Jaws. It's not as good as 47 Meters Down, but it's solid.
Her controversial ranking of shark cinema? Or
Twist. And not the cool M. Night Shyamalan kind.
her fondness for one-trick pony filmmakers who ruin legendary animated shows? Vote now!